next thing is ISO or gain. If you have a traditional video camera, it'll be referred to as a gain and will probably look something like -6, 0, 6, 12, and 18. Or if you have more of a film camera or a photo camera, the ISO will be expressed as from any range from 100 to any number, 32,000, 64,000, just depends on what number or what camera you have. But basically just is the lower the number, the less sensitive it is to light. And the higher number, the more sensitive it will be. You can basically shoot in a darker environment with a higher ISO, but it's going to get grainier. And so it's similarly to night vision. When you're out at night, you can see things because your eyes have adjusted to all the light, but things kind of don't look quite as clear and crisp as they do when you're in broad daylight. It's the same thing with ISO. You just have to get familiar with your camera and know the limits, because you'll find in some cameras they don't go much past 1600 ISO before they start getting really grainy, and while others can go up to 64,000 or 32,000 before they get really bad. It just depends on the camera. So as you look at recent updates on cameras, if you're looking for a camera that's 4 or 5 years old and you want to use it in daylight, they'll probably work just as well. Where some of the recent advances have been when it comes to low light capabilities. That's just something to ask yourself when you're looking at cameras is, will you need to shoot when it's dark, or are you mainly shooting daytime when you have plenty of light to work with? So the big thing is it's important to know that all of these three things, shutter, aperture, and ISO, work together and must be adjusted in order to affect the exposure and the way your video looks. So if you increase your ISO and you open your aperture so it lets a lot of light in, your image is going to be blown out unless you put a shutter on things to kind of reduce the amount of light. So these are all three pillars that kind of make up the exposure of your shot, and you have to work with them together, with there being pros and cons of each one. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get familiar with each of these tools, but my goal is to make sure you know what they are and play around with them as you get more and more familiar with each thing.